Good morning, everybody. This is internationally known professional psychic John Russell, paranormal investigator, published author. Been a while since I've done a new video. Apologize for that. I have just been hammered. I've just been super busy, which is a good thing. I'm going to tell you a really compelling story today. And you're going to think it's about running, but it's not. So bear with me, hang in, and you'll find yourself learning a good lesson from the realm of spirit just as I did. Let's go back to my childhood. I loved to run. Never was much good at it because I grew up with asthma, and as I got into my teens and early 20s, I developed COPD as well. So wind was always at a premium with me. There was always difficulty in running because I just didn't have the wind for it. I started running seriously after I had a collapsed lung, went in the hospital, had 2 surgeries, a minor and a major. When I got out of the major surgery, my doctor told me, he said, "John, I can't guarantee it won't happen again. Do every single thing that you can to strengthen your chest, your muscles, and your lungs. Lift weights, play tennis, swim, run, bicycle, do everything you possibly can." So I took him at his word, and one of the things that I did was distance running. Now, I was never a good distance runner because of the asthma, obviously. And even as a kid, I had severe joint and muscle problems, which later turned out to be indicative of several problematic rheumatological disorders that I've battled my entire life. But I enjoyed running, and when I felt good, when I could push my body to do it, I ran. And after getting out of the hospital and obeying my doctor's injunctions, I got to the point where I could run 5 to 10 miles. And I tried to run every day when I could. I had the obligatory The Complete Book of Running by James Fix, like everybody else did at the time. I read several other books on running. I subscribed to running magazines, Runner's World and The Runner. And I enjoyed reading about running and watching running races on TV, especially marathons, as much as I enjoyed running. And never got very fast. The 5 to 10 mile runs I did were basically fast jogs. I ran a little under a 6K race one time in 7 minutes and a few seconds per mile and change. So came in under 40 seconds. So that was about the best I ever did on distance. The fastest mile I ever ran, just a solo mile I went out and ran, I think it was about 6:24, 6:27. So I never had any real speed, and I never ran for speed. I always just enjoyed covering the distance. And one day, while I was sitting there in my home, I got the urge to run, but to run in a different way, to train for speed. So I began doing something that I had never ever done in my entire life. I began to do wind intervals, wind sprints as they're also known. And to do wind sprints, you would warm up, and then you would run just as far and as fast as you could, at least, eighth of a mile, quarter of a mile if you could, whatever you could run, just as far and as fast as you could, and get your heart rate up to 180, 190. And then you'd stop and walk to cool down, or jog lightly to cool down, and then walk, and you'd take your pulse at your neck. And when your pulse rate, your beats per minute, went back down to 150, 160, then you'd crank it up again and run as hard as you could, as far as you could, and get your pulse rate back up to 180, 190 beats per minute. And then jog slowly to cool down, and then walk and cool down, let your pulse rate go back down to 140, 150, whatever, and then do it again. So I began to work on these wind intervals, and I had no idea why I was working on wind intervals, because I wasn't that fast a runner. Like I say, my fastest in the mile, maybe 6:24, 6:27. So I wasn't a speedster by any stretch of the imagination. I had never desired to train for speed. And I didn't know why this urge had come over me to all of a sudden start doing these wind intervals. But I had this strong urge, and I kept doing these wind intervals, and I kept practicing, and I kept building up in the number of them that I did, and the repetitions, and I gained some speed each time, got a little bit faster as I ran, and I started doing these without much of a warm-up. I would get out there and just, boom, off I'd go as fast as I could, get my pulse rate up, stop, jog, walk, rest, get my pulse rate down, then go again, and I would do that without much warm-up. I didn't know why I was doing that either. I just had this urge, all of a sudden, this compelling urge to get out and do these wind intervals. And I remind you, I've never done wind intervals, never done anything fast, always done distance and basically a slow jog at that. So I had this urge to repeat these wind intervals, keep doing these wind intervals. So for weeks I'm doing wind intervals. I didn't know where the urge came from. I didn't know why the urge was so overpowering. I didn't know why I was supposed to be doing these wind intervals, but all of a sudden I knew for some reason I was supposed to be running these wind intervals. So I'm sitting on my couch one day, and we lived a little over half a block from one of the busiest streets in town, where the speed limit, I believe, was 40-45 miles an hour, and of course that meant people go 50, 55, 60. And that was just right up the block from our house. And it was a beautiful sunny day, and I had the door open and had we had a screen door that was half glass, half screen, and you could raise up one of the glass portions and have just the screen part there where the wind blew through and everything, get some fresh air in the house. So I had that open so I could hear everything that was going on outside. And as I'm sitting there on the couch, whatever I was doing, I heard all of a sudden this crying, like this infant or this toddler crying and wailing. And I'm like, what in God's name is that? And I got up off the couch and I looked out the door, and running down the middle of our street, headed toward this busy intersection and this busy street where this traffic flies by at 45, 50, 60 miles an hour, is this little kid. The little girl looks like she's maybe 2 years old. And she's just running down the middle of the street all by herself, just wailing and crying and bawling and running down the middle of the street toward this busy street. And I threw open the door, cleared the steps of the porch in one bound, accelerated dramatically, burst out into the street, chased her down and grabbed her and picked her up just before she hit the busy intersection, grabbed her up in my arms and held her. And it was like, my God, I saved this little girl's life, quite literally. And I turned around and I started walking down the street and trying to comfort her and ask her where she came from, where her family, where's her house. And about this time, this woman comes running down the street toward me. And I wanted to just slap the woman upside the head till her teeth fell out. And I said, is this your child, your baby? Yes. Oh, she got out. I was like, she was running down the middle of the street by herself and was headed to this busy street. And I just barely caught her and saved her. She ran by my house and was on the way there. And I had to jump out, run out my door, jump off the porch, run out my yard, run into the street, run down and catch her. I said, what are you doing? You know, I was just infuriated that she would let this small child out of her sight and run down the street like that and wouldn't take care of her. So she took the child back and went on. And then that's when it dawned on me. That's why I had been compelled to do all this wind interval training, to do these fast sprints, to run as fast as I could, and to start from a standstill with little or no warm-up. That's why that had been impressed upon me, because those on the other side, seeing farther down the road than we can a lot of times, knew this incident was going to happen. They knew that I would be the one there to intervene and save this child's life. And they knew that I needed to be up to speed, training to have that leg speed and that endurance in my lungs to get out there, jump out, run out into the street at a quick acceleration with no warm-up and chase this child down and grab her before she got into traffic and was killed. So, the moral of the story is, if the other side, if the realm of spirit, if your guardian angels, your spirit guides, if they tell you to run, you go run. You may not understand why at the time, but somewhere down the road it'll make sense and it'll pay off for you. So always listen to the voice of spirit, and whatever spirit's telling you to do, even if it makes no sense at the time, do it. And do it diligently until you find the payoff for it. Just like I did that day when I was compelled to run, and I did, and the reason became apparent in my saving the life of that young girl. So this has been John Russell, internationally known professional psychic, paranormal investigator, published author. I hope this has brought some meaning to your life and opened up your eyes to the fact that we need to pay attention to these things even when they don't make any sense. Listen to your intuition, listen to your guidance, obey that guidance, and who knows, it may save your life or enable you to save someone's life someday, just as it did mine. Hit the subscribe button. Appreciate you looking at my books, ordering my books if you would. More information on those at writingwithghosts.net and aknockintheattic.net. And for a reading, you can go to my website, johnrussell.net. Find out everything there about my qualifications, what it's like to get a reading, see the client and the media testimonials, and schedule your own reading with me if you so desire. I appreciate talking with you. God bless you, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye-bye.